It was late February, 196 BC, exactly 6 years since the founding of the Han Dynasty. A heavy snow blanketed the capital, Chang'an. The Imperial Chancellor, Xiongnu, braved the blizzard to personally visit the mansion of the Marquis of Huayin, Han Xin. Xiongnu confronted him with a cold demand. A messenger reports that the emperor has already slain the rebel Chen Shi in the north. All marquises and officials are required to attend the victory ceremony at the Chang'an Palace. Why are you absent? Han Xin, his mind heavy with dark suspicions and secret plans, pleaded that a severe illness made it impossible for him to travel. But Xiongnu was unyielding. Even if you are bedridden, he commanded, you must summon the strength to attend and pay your respects. Han Xin felt trapped. He owed his entire legendary career to Xiongnu, the man who had staked his own reputation to recommend him to the emperor years ago. Bound by this heavy debt of patronage, Han Xin eventually relented and set out for the palace. He entered the Chang'an Palace alone, without an army or retinue. The moment he stepped inside, hidden warriors seized and bound him. Accused of treason, the man who had once commanded millions and conquered all of northern China let out a hollow laugh. I regret not listening to the advice to declare independence in the kingdom of Qi. Now I have fallen into the hands of a woman and a petty official. This is fate. Without a trial, Empress Liu ordered the execution. The Marquis of Huayin was beheaded in the bell chamber of the Chang'an Palace. At almost the exact same moment, hundreds of miles to the north in the borderlands of Dai, at a place called Kanhe, another blizzard was raging. Here, at this gateway for northern invaders, the former king Han Xin was leading a joint force of his own rebels and Xiongnu cavalry. He was attempting to break through the pass to support the rebellion of Chen Shi. But a massive, well-equipped Han army stood in his path. The Han general Chai Wu leveled his spear and called out to his former colleague, "The emperor has always been merciful to those who return. You know this better than anyone. Come back to the Han." Looking at the Han banners blotting out the sky and the white wasteland behind him, King Han Xin knew his time had run out. He sighed. The emperor raised me from a commoner to a king. That was my fortune. But at the Battle of Xinjiang, I failed to die for my duty and was captured. That was my first crime. When the Xiongnu attacked Mai, I surrendered the city. That was my second crime. Now I lead foreign troops against my own country. That is my third crime. I am hiding in the valleys, begging the barbarians for my life. My longing to return home is like a paralyzed man dreaming of walking, or a blind man wishing to see. The heart desires it, but the situation forbids it. The talking stopped. The war drums thundered. General Chai Wu, possessing superior numbers and knowing Han Xin's tactics, utterly crushed the rebel force. King Han Xin was cut down in the chaos of the battle. Yes, you heard that right. This is not a fabrication. In the early years of the Han Dynasty, there were two men named Han Xin with identical names. One was the Immortal of War, the General Han Xin who conquered the north. The other was a scion of royalty, King Han Xin. Their achievements and timelines were so similar that some historians once hypothesized they were the same person. However, the records are clear. Unlike the commoner General Han Xin, King Han Xin was a legitimate prince of the old Han kingdom. He was the grandson of King Xiang of Han. Before his kingdom fell to the Qin, he was known as Lord Xin. He was a man of imposing height and profound military knowledge. When the Qin Empire collapsed, he joined his relative, King Cheng of Han, who was then being advised by the master strategist Zhang Liang. Han Xin was made a general, but his early career was stifled by the overwhelming power of the Qin. His break came when Liu Bang marched west. Passing through the old Han territories, Liu Bang's military genius helped the Han Restoration Army sweep away the Qin forces. In gratitude, the King Cheng of Han sent Zhang Liang and Han Xin to follow Liu Bang on his campaign to the west. After the fall of Qin, when the empire was divided by Xiongnu, Liu Bang was made the king of Han. Thousands of soldiers followed him into the mountains of the south. Among them were both Han Xins. At that time, the future General Han Xin was still an obscure officer. In contrast, the royal king Han Xin was already a prominent figure. On the march, he gave Liu Bang a piercing strategic insight. "Your soldiers are all from the east. They gaze home day and night. Use this sharp edge of their homesickness, and you can conquer the world." Both Han Xins were geniuses. They both saw the strategic window. After Liu Bang conquered the Guanzhong, he promoted the Royal Han Xin to Grand Commandant of Han State and sent him east to reclaim his ancestral lands. King Han Xin proved his worth. He defeated the puppet kings appointed by Xiongnu and recaptured the entire Han territory. Liu Bang kept his promise and crowned him the King of Han. From then on, he was known to history as King Han Xin, Han Wang Xin. King Han Xin was the first vassal king established and crowned by Liu Bang himself, and the bond between them was extraordinary. When Liu Bang suffered the catastrophic defeat at Pengcheng and other kings betrayed him, King Han Xin remained steadfast. For a long time, he didn't act like a distant king. He acted like Liu Bang's most reliable frontline commander. He held the critical Xinjiang-Chengao line, bearing the brunt of Xiongnu's main force in a brutal war of attrition. Meanwhile, the other Han Xin, the commoner from Chu and general-in-chief, was entrusted with a monumental task. Leading a corps of newly promoted cavalry commanders, including the fierce Guan Ying, he crossed the Yellow River to begin his campaign. As he marched, the situation at the Xinjiang front deteriorated rapidly. Under the desperate protection of Xiahou Ying, Liu Bang managed to flee the city. Left without its leader, Xinjiang soon fell to the enemy. The Han Imperial censor refused to surrender and was boiled alive by Xiongnu. In the chaos of the frontline collapse, King Han Xin, the commander on site, chose to surrender to the Chu forces. But this was merely a temporary submission to survive. Not long after, King Han Xin escaped from the Chu camp and fought his way back to the Han side. To his surprise, Liu Bang did not utter a word of blame. Instead, he immediately restored him to his full status and title as the King of Han. From King Han Xin's perspective, could there be a more righteous or loyal lord in the world to follow? Grateful for this grace, he served with absolute devotion for the remainder of the Chu-Han War, acting as Liu Bang's right hand and holding the line at Xinjiang against Xiongnu's relentless onslaught. While he held the center, General Han Xin conquered the northern states of Wei, Zhao, Dai, Yan, and Qi, completing a massive strategic encirclement. Finally, the various Han armies converged at Gaixia. Xiongnu committed suicide, and the world was finally unified. Among the many non-Liu kings, Yixing Wang, created during the birth of the Han Dynasty, King Han Xin was the most unique for two reasons. First, he was the only scion of the original 6 royal families to be restored to his ancestral lands. Others who held the title of king, such as the commoner General Han Xin, the rebel-turned-ally Ying Bu, or the guerrilla leader Peng Yue, gained their thrones through sheer military merit. Others, like Zhang Tu, were remnants of Xiongnu's old system, or like Zhang Er, were long-standing noble allies. None belonged to the ancient royal bloodlines of the warring states. One could say that after the bloodbaths of the Qin-Han transition, the kingdom of Han, the very first to be destroyed by the Qin Empire, became the only one to achieve a true, legitimate restoration. Second, King Han Xin was not just a vassal. He was Liu Bang's direct subordinate, bound by a relationship of intense dependency. Even after the Han Empire was fully established, he continued to act as Liu Bang's political pawn, his vanguard in complex administrative maneuvers. For instance, when the other Han Xin was demoted from King of Chu to the Marquis of Huaiyin, it was King Han Xin who was the first to step forward, petitioning the emperor to crown 4 Liu family princes as the kings of Jing, Chu, Qi, and Dai. This move was the key to the strategic fragmentation of the remaining non-Liu kings. Liu Bang's unwavering trust and King Han Xin's absolute loyalty were rare gems in the treacherous political storms of the early Han. If not for the tragic events that followed, their bond would have been the ultimate historical model of mutual understanding between a ruler and his subject. But alas, in history, there are no what-ifs. Having been stripped of his title as King of Chu, General Han Xin lived a secluded life in the capital, Chang'an. His lifelong dream of being a sovereign had been crushed, leaving him bitter and resentful. Historical records describe him as brooding day and night, consumed by a quiet fury. The veteran generals of the army still held the immortal of war in the highest regard. Even Fan Kuai, the emperor's own brother-in-law, would kneel before Han Xin, addressing him as Your Majesty and referring to himself as Han Xin's servant. But the proud Han Xin looked down on men like Fan Kuai, who had once been a mere butcher. He even resented his former subordinates like Zhou Bo and Guan Ying, the very men who had helped him sweep across the north. He felt insulted to be ranked among them as a mere marque. To him, the title was meaningless. But General Han Xin wasn't the only one feeling the weight of the emperor's suspicion. King Han Xin was about to face a crisis of his own. Once the threat of General Han Xin was neutralized, Liu Bang finally moved forward with his long-awaited mass ennoblement, granting titles to 143 heroes. But for King Han Xin, the reward was a forced relocation. He was ordered to move his entire kingdom from the fertile heartland of Yingchuan to the cold, rugged northern territory of Taiyuan. A quick glance at a map of the early Han explains why. Yingchuan was too strategic. To its north sat the critical front line of Xinjiang. To its northwest was the ancient capital of Luoyang. It was a crossroads connected to the entire empire, a land of 4 wars. No emperor sitting in Chang'an or Luoyang could sleep soundly, knowing such a vital hub was controlled by a vassal king with an independent army. Consequently, forced relocation became the only logical alternative to the total liquidation of the kingdom of Han. In his own mind, Liu Bang likely believed he was being quite generous. Rather than dismantling the kingdom entirely, he granted King Han Xin the Taiyuan region, encompassing a full 31 counties. This was a significant numerical expansion compared to the 20 counties in Yingchuan. From the emperor's perspective, what reason did King Han Xin have to be dissatisfied? Liu Bang had already seen a successful precedent. When the other Han Xin, the commoner general, was transferred from the 73 counties of Qi to the 89 counties of Chu, he had accepted the change without a word. However, there was a fundamental difference between the two men. For General Han Xin, moving from Qi back to Chu had been a glorious homecoming. But for King Han Xin, Yingchuan was his ancestral soil, the resting place of his royal forefathers. For a man of his lineage, abandoning his ancestral home was a far more painful sacrifice than any commoner-turned general could understand. Yet King Han Xin accepted. The history books don't record his inner thoughts as the order arrived. But while the other 143 marquises were throwing lavish banquets to celebrate their new titles, King Han Xin was packing his bags and mobilizing his army for the march into the freezing north. His bitterness was likely understood by only one other person, the lonely marquis of Huaiyin back in Chang'an. Still, King Han Xin remained Liu Bang's most loyal fighter. He arrived in Taiyuan in early 201 BC. By February, he petitioned the emperor with a bold suggestion. Jinyang, the provincial capital, was too far from the border to respond to a Xiongnu invasion. He requested to move his own capital to Mai, placing himself directly on the front line against the northern nomads. Facing such bravery from a subordinate he had just intentionally suppressed, Liu Bang could only say one word: approved. There is a critical detail here. Mai wasn't actually part of Taiyuan, it belonged to the Kingdom of Dai. And the king of Dai was Liu Shi, the emperor's own elder brother. By moving his capital to Mai, King Han Xin was essentially taking a piece of territory from the emperor's brother. Why did Liu Bang and Liu Shi agree to this? Because they both knew Liu Shi's limitations. Liu Shi was, by all accounts, an excellent farmer, but a terrible king. Later, when Liu Bang held a grand feast at the newly built Weiyang Palace, he openly mocked his father in front of the court. "You always called me a rascal who couldn't manage a household, unlike my brother Liu Shi. Now tell me, father, who has built the greater estate?" The court erupted in laughter. Liu Shi was a farmer at heart, not a warrior king capable of defending the frontier. This was a primary reason Liu Bang sent King Han Xin north. He needed a man of iron to shore up his brother's weak defenses. Liu Bang's northern defense line was now set. The veteran Lu Wan in the northeast, his brother Liu Shi and King Han Xin in the northwest, and his son-in-law Zhang Ao in the powerful kingdom of Zhao to the south. It was a system designed to support one another while also keeping each other in check. But Liu Bang and King Han Xin, both men born south of the Yellow River, had no clear understanding of the true power of the Xiongnu. That autumn, the Xiongnu invaded. To everyone's shock, King Han Xin, a veteran of the Central Plains, found himself rapidly overwhelmed. He repeatedly begged the court for reinforcements. When the legendary Modu Chanyu, the man who had unified the Xiongnu tribes, personally led a massive host to surround Mai, King Han Xin found himself in a desperate struggle for survival. He continued to call for help while simultaneously opening peace negotiations with the Xiongnu to buy time. Eventually, Liu Bang's reinforcements arrived. But in a suspicious twist of fate, the Xiongnu army withdrew the moment the relief force appeared. To the Han reinforcements, it didn't look like a desperate defense, it looked like a conspiracy. They began to investigate, to spy, and to send back reports of treason. Liu Bang wavered. He hadn't seen the Xiongnu's strength for himself. He wondered, how could the man who fought so brilliantly in the heartland fail so easily on the border? Why did the enemy vanish the moment my troops arrived? Is the situation as dire as he claims, or is something else going on? A year later, a general named Chen Shi was appointed to a northern post. Before leaving, he visited General Han Xin in Chang'an. Han Xin took him into a private courtyard and gave him a chilling piece of advice. The place you are going is where the Empire's finest troops are stationed, and you are the Emperor's most trusted official. If someone says you are rebelling, the Emperor won't believe it. If a second report comes, he will doubt. By the third report, he will be enraged and lead the army himself. These words were a perfect prophecy for the fate of King Han Xin. There was another reason for Liu Bang's growing resentment toward King Han Xin. During the Xiongnu invasion, his brother, the King of Dai, had run away. For deserting his post and leaving the border defenseless, Liu Shi wasn't executed. Instead, he was merely demoted to a marquis. This was the privilege of a family empire. Rewards and punishments for relatives required no logic. But in the early Han, the family empire wasn't yet an established reality. Someone had to take the fall for the northern collapse. Liu Bang chose King Han Xin. He sent a scathing letter to the king. To seek death is not brave, to seek only life is not fit for responsibility. When the enemy attacked Mai, was your strength really not enough to hold? You were in a position of life or death, yet you failed. For this, I hold you accountable. This wasn't just an exaggerated accusation, it was an ultimatum. The fact that this letter was preserved in the official Book of Han suggests it was not a private correspondence, but a public proclamation. Liu Bang wanted to assert his imperial authority and cover for his brother's cowardice. King Han Xin was to be the scapegoat. But every string has a breaking point, and this time Liu Bang pushed too far. The record states, Xin feared execution. He struck a pact with the Xiongnu to attack the Han together. He rebelled, surrendered Mai to the nomads, and attacked Taiyuan. Why did he break? King Han Xin had not wavered when he was a guerrilla fighter in the hills, nor when he climbed the Qinling Mountains, nor when he was trapped in Xinjiang, nor even when he escaped alone from the enemy camp. But now, as a king with tens of thousands of troops, he was consumed by fear. The reason is clear. The Liu Bang of the war was different from the Liu Bang on the throne. The wartime Liu Bang was a rascal with no morals, but he was willing to give away half the world to win. The enthroned Liu Bang had changed. He was now calculating how to consolidate power for his own bloodline, breaking promises and cornering his old allies. King Han Xin realized that a day might come when even his absolute loyalty would be discarded for the sake of the Liu family. This was the true source of his terror. The northern frontier had begun to crumble. When news of the betrayal reached Chang'an, Liu Bang was consumed by shock and rage. He donned his armor once again and summoned his legendary circle of generals, Xiahou Ying, Zhou Bo, Fan Kuai, and Guan Ying. He would lead the army north himself to crush the rebellion. While Liu Bang was mobilizing, King Han Xin and his joint forces of Han and Xiongnu troops had already overrun Taiyuan and pushed deep into the southern Shandong region. But Liu Bang once again proved why his military genius was far above the average of his era. He blocked the rebel advance at Tongdi. Then, executing a brilliant strategic flanking maneuver, he bypassed the main enemy force through the Kingdom of Dai to the east and launched a surprise raid on King Han Xin's headquarters. The rebel army was shattered, a key general was slain, and King Han Xin fled across the border into Xiongnu territory. Liu Bang's forces continued their sweep, reaching Jinyang. In a second decisive battle near Pingcheng, they crushed the remnants of the rebel and Xiongnu forces. Riding a wave of confidence, Liu Bang decided to push further north to engage the main Xiongnu host. He sent light cavalry scouts ahead. They returned with reports that the Xiongnu were in total disarray, leaving behind only the old, the weak, and the sick. Traditional history claims Liu Bang grew complacent and allowed his elite vanguard to outpace the main army. But for a general who had survived the bloody, treacherous wars against Xiongnu, would he really fall for such a simple ruse? Records say a scholar warned him this was a trap, but Liu Bang exploded. "Nonsense! You are demoralizing my army." Why would a battle-hardened leader walk into a trap that even a novice could see? He certainly had the capital for confidence. His elite Lanzhong cavalry possessed close-quarters combat skills that no light nomad cavalry could match. And behind him stood an army of 320,000. But there was a deeper reason. Liu Bang needed a total victory. He needed to prove to the world that the Xiongnu, the very force that had terrified King Han Xin, were weak and easily beaten. He wanted to show that King Han Xin's defection was an act of cowardice, not the result of the emperor's own merciless pressure. This was one of the rare moments in Liu Bang's life where emotional need overrode rational analysis. The last time this happened was at the disaster of Pengcheng, and once again, he would pay the price. As he led his vanguard forward, Liu Bang fell directly into the trap at Mount Baideng. Thousands of Xiongnu riders suddenly emerged from the snow-shrouded peaks, surrounding the emperor in a ring of steel. The historian Sima Qian's account of this siege is highly dramatized, including tales of secret bribes to the Xiongnu queen. In reality, the Siege of Baideng was likely a massive, mutual surprise. Liu Bang had not imagined the Xiongnu were truly this powerful, nor that they could mobilize cavalry on such a scale. It exceeded his imagination as a man from the southern Chu heartlands. Conversely, Modu Chanyu had not imagined the Han vanguard was this tough. A few thousand heavy Han cavalrymen displayed a combat power far superior to his own tribal warriors, who were better at raiding than sustained combat. It was a clash between two powers that did not yet understand each other, meeting at the wrong time and the wrong place. In the end, no major battle broke out. After testing each other's strength, a truce was called. The Xiongnu opened a path. Under the cover of the blizzard, the Han chariots and the elite cavalry, with every crossbow loaded with 2 bolts, retreated in perfect order. This grand confrontation, which could have involved over 500,000 men, ended in a ghostly silence. Having failed to eliminate the traitor King Han Xin, Liu Bang retreated south. On his way through the kingdom of Zhao, governed by his son-in-law Zhang Ao, the frustrated emperor was in a foul mood. He acted with his old rascal arrogance, deeply insulting Zhang Ao. The ministers of Zhao, old loyalists who had served Zhang Ao's family for decades, were incensed. To them, their only lord was the king of Zhao. The emperor was a distant and disrespectful figure. They plotted to assassinate Liu Bang, but the emperor's intuition and pure luck allowed him to escape the attempt. A year later, the plot was discovered. The Chancellor of Zhao and Zhang Ao were brought to Chang'an in chains. Every Zhao minister stubbornly insisted that their king, Zhang Ao, knew nothing of the plot. Even Empress Lu pleaded for her son-in-law for the sake of her daughter. Liu Bang snapped back. "If Zhang Ao really became the son of heaven, do you think he would care about your daughter?" Yet beneath the rage was a cold reality. Liu Bang could not legally convict Zhang Ao, nor the ministers, aside from the mastermind, because they were Zhao officials. Their actions were consistent with their loyalty to the king of Zhao. There were no precedents for how an emperor should handle this. Liu Bang eventually demoted Zhang Ao to a marquis, but released and even promoted many of the Zhao officials. To secure the north, he appointed his favorite young son, Liu Ruyi, as the new king of Zhao. But Ruyi was only 10. The real power went to Chen Xi, who was promoted to Chancellor of Zhao and given command over the military and government of both Zhao and Dai. Chen Xi's origins are murky in the records, likely an intentional erasure after his rebellion. But from the fragments, we can piece together a picture. First, he was a veteran commander from the Chu-Han Wars, likely a mid to high-level general. Second, he had performed brilliantly for the empire, leading Han troops to defeat the remnants of King Han Xin's forces and reclaiming the northern territories. Third, during his long years of frontier warfare, he gathered a following of people dissatisfied with central authority, particularly wealthy merchants who brought him funds, manpower, and their own grievances. As Chen Xi's fame grew, so did the emperor's suspicion. Reports of his massive entourage, his extravagance, and his secret dealings with the Xiongnu began to flood the capital. It was exactly as General Han Xin had predicted. The emperor would eventually doubt, and then he would rage. In 197 BC, Chen Xi rebelled. He took command of the northern border armies and declared himself the king of Dai. Liu Bang was genuinely shaken. Chen Shi was once my trusted envoy. He lamented. How could he betray our cause? But the problem had to be solved. Once again, Liu Bang marched north to war. Records state that Chen Shi's rebellion was partly the result of constant persuasion from King Han Xin, who sent agents to goad him into action. When Chen Shi rose, King Han Xin led his own troops south to support him. This led to the Battle of Canhe, where he was slain by the Han general Chai Wu. His family remained in exile among the Xiongnu for years, only returning to Han territory later to be enfeoffed as marquises. And what of the other Han Xin? Years earlier, General Han Xin had told Chen Shi, "I will rise from within for you, and the world can be ours." While Liu Bang was away fighting Chen Shi in the north, General Han Xin stayed in the capital, claiming illness. He plotted to forge an imperial decree to arm prisoners and slaves and launch a sudden strike on the central government while the city was empty of troops. But a servant betrayed the secret. Empress Lu and Xiao Hu acted swiftly, luring Han Xin into a trap and executing him. Is it true? Would the man who refused to rebel when he held a massive army as a king really choose to rebel now as a lonely marquis? This has been a debate among historians for 2,000 years. Was General Han Xin truly a traitor, or was this a framed execution? The absolute truth is lost to time. But in terms of political logic, the rebellion was likely real. General Han Xin was not fighting for the throne, he was fighting as a resistance. He was part of a dying class of old aristocrats who saw the noose of imperial centralization tightening around their necks. They weren't trying to become the new emperor, they were trying to break the suffocating grip of the Great Unification. That is why they didn't rebel when they were kings. They only rebelled once they had lived in the capital for years and truly understood the cold, crushing logic of absolute central power. Both Han Xins, the general in the capital and the king on the frontier, saw the same dead end. Whose fault was it? In a way, no one's. China needed this centralized system to survive, but the system forced everyone into conflict. It was, in its early form, a system that ran counter to human nature itself. When Liu Bang returned from his campaign and heard that Han Xin was dead, the records say he was both relieved and saddened. Relief came first, for a threat was gone. Then came the pity, for a comrade was lost. The tragedy of the two Han Xins was the price paid for the birth of a unified empire,